Hello, this is Bishop T.D. Jakes, and you're watching Sound Booth TV.
Have you ever been feeling low? Don't know what to do. Everything seems upside down. Well, I have come to tell you that the just shall live by faith.
So we promise you we're going to take you on a journey. And on this journey, this is what we're doing. We're preserving the souls of men through the currency of faith. You know that without faith, it is impossible to please God. The Bible said with God all things are possible, but without faith, it is impossible to please God. Because they that come to him must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Now tonight we have with us none other than Bishop Dr. Michael A. Frith. Bishop, it's such an honor to have you here. It's an honor, sir. It's an honor. It's an honor to have you here. And Bishop, we're going to be talking about faith tonight, something that is lacking today, and people are giving up on God, people are taking their lives, and people don't know what to do. But tonight, on this journey, we want to empower and encourage some people to stay on this path. Bishop, who is Bishop Frith?
Who is Bishop Frith? This is indeed cut to the heart question. Well, first and foremost, a little background. I'm a native born Jamaican. I grew up in Kingston 3, which is Vineyard Town. At the time it was Eden Gardens. And I attended Camperdown High School. My journey for the most part was not a religious one in Jamaica. I was a Catholic for most of my life. I was a Catholic. In fact, one of those who must have been radical in the world. My conversion experience came here in the United States. Coming to know the Lord, and in a very personal and intimate way, my encounter was not in a church. I encountered this presence of God in a hotel room. And so it endeavored the reality of who he was just by my opening a Gideon Bible at Sheraton Kingston Hotel. And that Bible speaking to me, challenging me. And so I could relate to the word addressing my life. More so than, of course, an entity or an individual who would use of God. With my due respect, of course, to pastors. And, my journey through the Christian walk was not an easy one. As a young pastor, I made a lot of mistakes. I made some wrong choices. Of course, I did not have, and I'm not displacing my blames, but I didn't have a father figure, so to speak, to kind of tell me how to say no, and show me how to say no, and to give me a tour of life. We talk about mentoring. Today, that's like, it's a household term. But at the time when we were growing my formative Christian years, I didn't have someone to walk me through in a practical sense. I grew up in a church, having been saved now as I was attending a Pentecostal church. And they were so stringent on their rules that you couldn't even wear wedding ring. And so, everything was do not, touch not, taste not. So you really didn't come to the reality of transparency. So there were struggles that I had, and even in answering the call and coming into the Christian arena, there were issues that I had to encounter, personal failures and trials along the way. So as a brother first, I evolved into a pastor, but not without my pitfalls. Mm-hmm. And then of course, after 10 years of pastoring, I sensed that I could be effective in the bishopric. And so the church at the time saw fit to elevate me as a bishop. Well, my concept is a bit radical, Judy, because I say, if any man desire the office of a bishop. So it is really, it is the desire and an aspiration of men. But it is predicated on the equipment and the qualifying ability to oversee the church, to govern the church, and not to do so from the position of authority or the letter. But unless you have a vision of struggling people, and we are able to empower and enable them, then it's difficult to take oversight over people. So it's not just an office, it's about recognizing that people struggle and that they evolve before they come into maturity, and being equipped to walk them through using your own life and giving men and women a tour, which is what I call mentoring. So, mentoring people. But of course, there are dangers in transparency. So, as a bishop, I came out of some hard knocks with some serious haters, if you will, and haters from among my peers in the clergy. And for the most part, because, you know, as a Jamaican, we aspire for a higher place. You know, one of the things that we grew up with was this, we had this class prejudice back in the day when we were growing. And of course, more pointed, it was the color prejudice, but class prejudice was people who you grew up, and there were certain things that you just didn't want to be held captive to. So you aspire for a higher quality and for a better way of life. So even the poorest among us, you know, aspire for a better way of life. So when you come into Christianity, you just don't want to be another run-of-the-mill pastor or another run-of-the-mill brother. You want to know that you can bring a better, more excellent way of life to people and equip them and empower them to overcome some of these struggles.
Wow. Thank you. Bishop, we're here tonight and we're talking about faith. When I went into the Nelson's dictionary, I found out that faith means a firm conviction based upon just hearing. You only hear. You don't see the thing that you're believing in. You just hear and you just believe that it is possible to happen. I want you right now to just define faith in your own words.
I think maybe I would oversimplify it if I said BRA. I use this acronym, you know, BRA, believe, receive, and achieve. So there is a faith secret. There is the dynamics of faith is that faith has faith secrets. And when you subscribe to faith secrets, it becomes an endeavored part of you. And that enables you to endure. So that faith substance causes you to endure hardships and difficulties of life, because faith secrets have faith promise, through faith substance gives faith reward.
This is Bishop for you all, okay?
No, it gives faith reward. It gives faith reward.
Wow. You're now a bishop. You weren't born that way. Well, because we heard you, you know, tell us in your own word when we asked you who's Bishop Frith.
Actually, after 10 years of being a bishop, I was elevated as a chief apostle 2 years ago. So now 25 years of bishop. So after 10 years, then the council of bishops saw fit to move me into archbishop, but I chose rather to go with chief servant of God, being.
Bishop, I want you to describe a little bit of your journey, because a lot of people believe that, okay, all right then, so I was prophesied on that I'm supposed to be a pastor, bishop, or prophetess, an evangelist, whatever it is. And so everybody come now, once they hear that, we see people now running, some people, once they hear that they're going to be a pastor, they're putting up churches and this, they're not waiting on the calling. Bishop, I want you to describe for me a little bit of your journey, your faith walk to where you are now.
That's a tear puller. It's a tear puller because, to be honest with you, you know, putting back the curtains and being more realistic than idealistic, it has been very difficult in this sense. I look at it more like the walk of Abraham, and I don't want to just use this in a utopian sense, but look at Abraham. He starts off with the unknown. I was never good at maths, you know, but I do know that you have to work with the known to get to the unknown. So therefore, you must have a deep conviction that God has called you, that you have had an encounter with God, one that is indeed life-changing. And this, of course, marks the beginning of your walk of faith. But then God is calling you out of the known into the unknown. But for you to work out getting to the unknown, you must first be convicted and convinced that the one who has called you. Now, hence you asked a question and you made a statement rather that many people today launch out aspiring to be leaders in the church, but they really have no birth date. Hence they're illegitimate. I don't know, for the most part, they have no personal encounter whereby God has given them a mandate. You have to have an encounter with God. And the encounter that I had was one that broke me. When I say broke me, I had to come to grips with my own humanity, with my own limitations, with my own finiteness, with the fact that, you know what, I don't have it all together. I need God. I need to depend on Him. So I look more like Father Abraham. He started off from Ur of the Chaldees, then he goes to Haran. For me, I experienced the Haran. Anyone who aspires for, the higher place in God, Haran means crossroad. And once that you start to live for God, there's a crossroad, there's a place where you have to make decisions that oftentimes will leave you alone.
Wow.
Haran, we must experience our Haran. I might not necessarily be chronologically correct in terms of our experiences, but for me, I had to get to a place where I was almost like a madman. Where people would look at me, and then there are those of them who would judge you on the outside because they say, oh, you're too speaky-spoken, or you use too much. This is the term we use, it's a colloquial term, but for the most part. But if a man is going to be a shoemaker, he should be really proficient at leather and materials and texture and quality. If we're going to be God's oracles or God's spokesperson, we should broaden our vocabulary. We should seek for ways and means in which our diction and our expression is with clarity, because it is the tongue that we use to affect change, to bring about the realization of truth. So there are those who are lazy ministers, who don't want to take time to invest in themselves. Serious. So what I do, when I first got saved, I sat down. Back in the days, it's not like today when you have all of these computer and access to technology. I mean, we sit down with 15, 20 books. Matthew Henry, James Fawcett Brown, Adam Clark, Dakes annotated, with 15 different commentaries, and argue with them, with 12 different Bible versions, and just study. Not the regimen that we have today in Bible college. I am the professor, or rather I am the chancellor of a Bible college, and I know that when we make, but I didn't have anyone to walk me through at the time. So personal discipline is I would have to burn the midnight oil. I mean, get up early in the morning. I had kids at the time. I'm married now 41 years, but at the time when I started, I mean, it was my kids, the family paid, because I didn't even know I had a call. I mean, it wasn't clear to me. I just knew that there was this driving passion, that there was just this engine, this petroleum, this stamina, just zeal. But thanks be to God, that zeal was directing me to gain knowledge.
Wow.
Like Abraham from Mesopotamia or of the Chaldees to Haran, there's a place, a crossroad, where we must be decisive about the direction that we're called. Mm-hmm. And even though we don't know where we're going, we know that we're searching. We're trying to realize the high call. So from Haran to Shechem. Shechem means a ridge. Mm-hmm. And there's a place in our walk with God, but it seems like you one more step and it's done.
Wow, I was just coming to ask you.
Seriously, it's just, there's a time in my ministry when, believe me, I never had much friends, to be honest with you. When I'm in the world, I had friends. I always led, I always was motivated to kind of, get things going, but it was not positive. I would lead people, I'd go steal a car. I'm serious. At 13, I had two cars. I had 2 cars at 13. But I stole a Hillman Minx just to prove that I could hotwire it and steal it. So my influence as, my leadership skills and influence at the time was more negative. Wow. So I could never use that as a resume for leading God's people. But influence, yes. And so I had to relearn, what it was to be a positive influence and role model in the lives of people. Having to deal with the checks and balances of my own passion. Sometimes when you have zeal and the passion is there and you don't have the discipline, you make a wreck of yourself. And this is what it was. I got to a place where there was a ridge. Like you reached a pinnacle, and just one more step, Michael, and you're done. One more decision. You have to get to a place where you just realize that for me to live is Christ. In other words, I cannot make another step. This is what faith is all about. Knowing that I'm going to, Romans 10:17, faith cometh by hearing, hearing by the word of God. So therefore, it was the word of God. It has to be the word of God that's my driving force. That becomes my GPS. Nice. It becomes my GPS. So, for the most part, if you feel that you're on a journey for destiny, And you're starting off, you go, you're coming to a place where you make decisions, you're Haran, you come to a Shechem, a ridge. Before you know it, you get down in Egypt, means black land. Walking by faith at times will take us like Abraham in Egypt, where everything around us is dismal and uncertain. And we can't see clearly where our next step will be. And sometimes in our walk, even though there's greatness in our lives, you can make decisions like Abraham picked up Hagar. Sometimes you can pick up some crosses down in Egypt. But I tell you, it's true. And there are sometimes affiliations, conduct, behavior patterns, philosophies, and sometimes even ministerial ethics that are not godly. You can pick up in Egypt and take it back to Gerar, which is a circle. So sometimes you end up going in a circle. Then there's Hebron. Before you can get to Canaan, the journey of faith, Hebron is confederacy. Before people join you, they're not going to join you until indeed you have the receipt that you have paid the price of difficulty and hardship.
And Bishop, wow, this is wowing me. Because a lot of people sometimes see you, see probably me, and they're saying, oh my God, I wish if I could be like them. And so they come in and looking for, it's like, they call it a microwave generation now, where people really just want the quick fix, not understanding that the journey, you have to stop here, you reach here, you go here, but because of the determination, and you have to know what you're all about, Bishop. You have to know why you come into this. If you don't know why you're in this, then Bishop, I hearing you, I'm realizing that a lot of contrary wind came, but you still stood your ground, understanding that without faith, without having that faith, you fall, you rise, you did that, but you realize that, listen man, I got to pick myself up and I got to move right on. Yes. Wow.
You have to do it. Fighting without any fears in it. And in the arena of the episcopacy, or even in the arena of the clergy, there's friendly fire. There's friendly fire. You have your haters, and so you get roadblocks along the way. You have to really know who you are. So by faith, you really must have a clear picture of who you are in God and who God has called you to be. And that must become your magna carta. That must become your that which you use, as a mode of operation, standard operating procedure. So if you don't know who you are, trust me, people will tell you. Most of them who aspire to be where you are, they can't even take a good gossip. Much more a good scandal.
And it comes with the territory, Bishop.
Because, of course it does. The scars that we bear, the Bible says, henceforth let no man trouble me, for I bear in my body the marks of Christ. Yes. Many of us who have attained to any level of success, quote unquote, whatever that is, must have the scars that we have paid. And remember now, we're fighting forces that are of course supernatural. We're fighting natural, preternatural, all kinds of forces. But back in my early ministry, we were a strong deliverance ministry. Back in those days, many of my faith friends and colleagues didn't believe that Christians could be demonized. So what happened is many of their members snuck out and came to our church and ended up getting deliverance and going back to testify. Then the leaders got jealous and felt that you were showing them up but it wasn't that. It's because their faith didn't lead them to understand that casting out of demon was a real work of faith. Because for you to address an entity that sensual perception can't see. You understand what I'm saying? But you know that by virtue of the byproduct of these evil designs that is operating in a person's life. Now when you do that and all things are settled, you get the backlash of those forces that you are binding and casting out. So fighting demonic powers, it's like resistance. You want to build muscle mass, you want to build muscle, you have to reckon with the resistance. So it's as you allow yourself to feel the resistance of the weight that you build strength and muscle mass. And sometimes people don't want to encounter resistance. They want an easy ride, a glorious ride. They want to be in the limelight all the time, not understanding it doesn't work like that.
It's not like that. It's not like that. It's not like that. Yes. Welcome to this journey. All right, Bishop, we're seeing where I think it was in 2013, 2014, The statistic of pastors taking their own lives, Christian backsliding. I've seen people say, you know what, this pathway, I can't be bothered with it. I mean, I too, there are times in my walk when I'm wondering, is God really around? And what I know why I came in, so that's why I have stick-to-itivity. I'm sticking with him. I'm not moving. Even when he don't come through, we see where we read about the 3 Hebrew boys, and we see where they said to the king, listen now, we ain't going to bow. Even if our God don't come, we're not going to bow. We see people just simply because of finances and marital problems, children, their jobs, and we see people taking their lives and giving up on God. I just want you, Bishop, just to talk to us. Talk to us. Why some of these things happen, especially the part that a Christian would take their own lives. Why? What would have happened to such a person?
There are just several factors here. There is really no one way in which that we can, But I'd say first and foremost, let's begin first with expectation overload. There are people who set such high bars for themselves that is unattainable. And then there are those around that have them on such high pedestals that they live always to please people and are not willing to show how vulnerable they are or their struggles. Their transparency is really not there. There's no transparency. So for the most part, they live a farce. They live a lie. They try to maintain this, this ideal, untouchable, perfect way of life. So when reality chips in, they don't have a support system. And for the most part, they're not surrounded with people who are sensitive enough to their struggles.
Wow.
So that they internalize a lot of this stuff. Now remember that if you're dealing with personal issues, though you have your combatants, the world, the flesh, and the devil. But sometimes you can't even deal with the social aspects of the world because your personal struggles is so great. Then if the enemy comes supernaturally, you're going to have a breakdown. Because sometimes the identity crisis that we have with the flesh, that alone will just preoccupy you. Then of course, then there's the social aspects of the world making demands on you. And then, we don't know how to say no. We don't know how to say that is outside of my call. I'm not graced with that. You know what I mean? People want you to be things. Somebody wants you to be a lawyer, so they want to live vicariously through you because, you be a lawyer because, everybody in our family are lawyers. I want to show my sister that, that I can make my marriage work. And we go through all of this thing in competing and not really just looking at our limitations and then seeking God for grace to deal with. So these are some of the factors. And then, of course, there is the target of the enemy. You know that you can do more damage in war when you have a sniper. Because the sniper targets the one who is authority figure. If you can shoot a sergeant major, a lieutenant, you demoralize the entire army. You don't need to blow up first class privates and second. The people that the enemy is going after are those with a high call.
Yes.
Those who are called of God. And so he targets them, with the fiery dart.
Smite the sheep and
Smite the shepherd and the sheep scattered. So in the fiery dart, it's only the shield of faith. Living by faith requires then that shield be placed up. And that is an objective weaponry. But same time, it is still a protection. So you have offensive and you have defensive. If you don't know how to block these fiery darts, and they ever begin through the power of suggestions to start to, to put a blaze in you, you'll be surprised to know the outcome is that you put a gun to your head and blow your head off. Even though you have all the scripture verses that says, that for me to live is Christ and to die is gain, etc.
You know the entire Bible. Yes. Bishop, I'm wowed. I'm wowed right now. And for me, the audience is here. And one of the things I would love for you to do, because as I said, I know where I'm coming from. I know what it is like to be slandered. I know what it is like to be ostracized, criticized, rejected, being manipulated. I know what it is like. I know what it is like to feel like I'm going out of my mind. But the truth is, when coming into this, I know why I came. And after knowing why I came, I started, realizing who I am. Because first I believe we ought to know who we are. Who is our protector. Because once you know you have God, it doesn't matter what you come up against, you really don't have to give up on God. We're going to be coming right back to you because this journey continues. Well, right now, we're going to take a break.
Every Thursday, the Church of Satan prays against marriages. So now you have Christian marriages that are dissolving. Why? Because 2 or 3 of them touch and agreeing, and you can see the result of their negative agreement of faith.
Let me tell you who to blame. Blame the boy lying at your feet, his body oozing life through the hole in his stomach where the bullet tore him apart. Blame him for challenging you, for not looking away and for not backing down when you pulled out the gun. Blame your mother for bringing you into this world when she was but a kid herself and for dragging you up, not bringing you up. Blame society for not giving you hope. Blame your father for not being there, the man who looked after himself instead of looking after you. Blame the gun in your hand for making you a target, for making you more likely to be picked on. Blame the dead boy, blame your mother, blame society, blame your father, blame the gun, blame anyone but yourself for not being strong enough to put down the gun, to break the cycle.
For tickets for the Just Shall Live by Faith, email us at justliveby8@gmail.com or call us at 904-352-7369. We would love
Just shall live by faith. Just shall live by faith. Preserving the souls of men through the currency of faith. We're here to empower, we're here to strengthen, and we're here to renew. Welcome back, everybody. Yes, I'm happy to be back. All right, before we go any further, Bishop, I have 2 questions here from the audience for you. And I hope you'll be satisfied, right, after he finished, right? How do you explain grace, dispensation, and faith?
All right, it's a 3-part question. How do you explain grace? Today, grace as we know it, of course, the generic interpretation is, the undeserved or unmerited favor. But we understand that I look more at grace as a divine enablement to accomplish a specific task that is God-pleasing. So God will grace you with an ability, or He'll grace you with strength, or He'll grace you with wisdom. However, there's today what's classified as cheap grace.
I never heard that one before.
Yeah, no, cheap grace, because today you can do almost anything and God understands. God has seen that long before you did it, and He has factored in your forgiveness. So you can live like hell and still declare that you're going to heaven. Because God knows when He called you that you live by hell, but He still said you are a child of heaven. So we call it cheap grace.
Oh.
We call it cheap grace. So there's a revelation of grace today, which is important. But grace is not just something inanimate. Grace, Titus says, the grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared unto all men, teaching them. Grace teaches us that denying ungodliness and worldly lust, we should live soberly, godly, and righteously in this present world. So grace is a teacher. Grace is a teacher. And when we think of grace, you say grace, there are 2 other aspects to it.
Grace dispensation.
Dispensation. Dispensation, it's a time in which that God allows to have a particular thing done. There was a dispensation when God would populate the world, and He allows, Adam and Eve, and He allows, of course, family members to marry within. And there's a dispensation when He calls it incest, and he stops that.
Yes.
So there's a time when one thing is okay, and then of course after God accomplishes a particular plan, because He's sovereign, He changes the rules. And as a game changer, we call it now a dispensation. This dispensation that we're living in is a dispensation of grace. And so when we understand that God now, His rules, they don't vary, but the New Testament rules is what we subscribe to live by.
Yes.
And that is how we are governed and function by living by these rules.
Okay. And faith.
Okay, now, faith in any generation, in any dispensation, is pleasing to God. But the problem with this end time generation, and I hate to be problematic, but Luke 18:8 says, even when the Son of Man returns, will He find faith on the earth? In other words, faith will be such a rare thing by the time Jesus returns.
Wow.
So He says, by the time I return, will I find faith? Now, in the dispensations past, Faith was the underlying principle that brought the gospel, that brought, the apostles, that brought many of the elders and the fathers to the place where they laid the foundation for the church. But by the time Jesus returns, faith will be under such fire that will be the genocide of faith. Jesus is saying, will the Son of Man find faith when he returns? So we understand that as in this dispensation, faith is become very rare. Genuine faith, not faith in faith, but faith in God.
Wow.
Because there are people today who have faith in the principles that if you believe, anything can happen. But not if you believe in God, you make what happens sovereignly, the will of God. We can have 2 or 3 people here who touch and agree negatively. Every Thursday, the Church of Satan prays against marriages. So now you have Christian marriages that are dissolving. Why? Because 2 or 3 of them touch and agreeing, and you can see the result of their negative agreement of faith. So then now faith becomes a way in which that, it's presumptuous and foolishness. In the presumption, we talk about, I'm going to cut a check by faith. Well, you have $18.43 in the bank, and you're cutting a check for $500. Talk about by faith. When by faith, you're being foolish. You're being foolish. So today, we really don't want to live practically by faith, because what it is if God breaks the rules of certain things and now creates new dollars, the Treasury Department is going to find that these dollars have numbering systems, and God has violated the principle as a lawgiver and as a lawkeeper. It's like a person, you want to lose weight and you're talking about, I'm just going to curse these calories, and you are feeling out that some practical things that need to complement your profession of faith.
Is that what they call blind faith, Bishop?
Blind faith, what's this, Judith? Blind faith is crossing the street, and blind faith says, you can't touch this. So blind faith says, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. But real faith looks left, look right, and look left again.
Is fear the opposite of faith?
Yeah. It's an enemy of faith. When fear knocks at the door and faith answers it, nobody's there. Well, perfect love casts out fear. And wherever there's fear, there's not perfected love. And it also reflects a distrust in God, who is able to make all grace abound, who is able to make all things work together for all good, who is able to perform the counsel of his own will. So when we're intimidated by our opponent, or when we're intimidated by the antagonist, or when we are intimidated at the quote-unquote evil powers, that we fail to believe what God says because we don't want, a backlash, or we don't want to have some negative repercussion, then it means that indeed we are afraid. And being afraid of the enemy is indeed an insult, because then we fail to put faith in our God.
Wow. Bishop, what advice right now will you give to the believers out there, knowing that the battle for our souls have been intensified?
Wow.
When it comes on to faith, what advice can you give them now?
In these times, it's right now there's a famine for a real life-changing word. And what will sustain us during any dispensation is a solid handle on God's word. And my encouragement would be to store up enough word, practical word within us, that we use that. That is what we're pulling out of our quiver. That is what we're drawing as a means of response, corresponding action. We don't react, we respond. But if the response is not word-based, it's not going to yield any expected result. Because the only thing that's going to affect change is the word. And so my thing is, get as much word as you can in you, because let's face it, there are many charlatans out there. And if you go by the evidence of what is classified as supernatural, this will be what is the catalyst for deception. Because if it is possible, even the elect can be deceived because they are that good. They're that good.
The charlatans.
The charlatans are that
Yes.
good. But if we have, he that hath a dream, let him speak the dream. He that hath my word, let him speak my word faithfully. For what is the shaft to the wheat, said God. And so the real crux of the matter now for sustaining power and for maintaining strong faith is the word. And it comes by hearing. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word. To furnish your faith, to be able to sustain your faith, you will need to have sustained word.
Wow.
You will need to have sustained word. If you don't have sustained word, your faith is what you don't have fighting.
Bishop, thank you for being here. I've learned so much, and I'm sure you all have learned a lot. As I said, today the souls of men through the currency of faith. You guys are wealthy tonight. You got a lot of money because you have heard some serious, get some serious nuggets to sustain you. I'm sure right now I've been elevated more in my faith based on the things that you have shared. Thank you for coming. It's an honor. It's a privilege. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I think the show was awesome and I really enjoyed it. And I hope to see. I've learned a lot from what the bishop had to share and to offer, and it was very informative. And I would love to come back to the next taping.
Just Shall Live by Faith. Email us at justlivebyfaith8@gmail.com or call us at 904-352-7369.
Just shall live by